This Fear Assembly podcast is a continuation from the prior episode. All
Anyway,
right. Well,
horror movies.
yes. Let's get back on track. No more restaurant franchising conversation here. So, Ricky, you wanted to talk about some important horror films, right?
Yeah, I think that Brian's question kind of leads into this and the idea of like, horror being subjective. But I feel like there are certain films that are important, like important horror films, whether they have gone on to, change horror or did something completely new. So I'm interested in what you think the three most important horror films of all time are, and I'll start by telling you that obviously I think The Exorcist is the most important horror film of all time. It just changed everything forever.
Mm-hmm.
Jaws, it created the summer blockbuster. And I did make another note, and my brain is a sieve as always, and I can't remember what
Hereditary.
There we go. Hereditary. Again, it changed horror for forever. I think
Mm-hmm.
the term elevated horror wasn't really a thing before Hereditary. And Hereditary showed that you can make a horror movie be absolutely terrifying, but also be an allegory for generational trauma and grief and all of that. So for me, them three films are the three that I think are the most important because of what they've done for horror, how they've changed horror, and just how like influential they were.
Yeah.
All right. Amelia, how about you? What do you think the most important horror films were?
Oh, the most important horror films. I would say I completely agree. Actually, no, actually, I do agree with you with The Exorcist, but I would say, and this is a bit like very horror geeky, but a guy called William Castle was a director back in the day, did 13 Ghosts and other horror films, and he was known as the, like, king of the gimmick, right? So when people went to go see his films, he'd have skeletons flying around. He did something called the Tingler, where he'd put, like, something electric, I believe, in the seats, so when something happened on screen, it would tingle the seats, and I believe that made the way for things like 4DX and the gimmicks that we see in cinema now. So I would say even though it's not a film and it's a load of films, just William Castle in general,
Sure.
absolutely. Then I would say, I would go with. Actually, I had a discussion in the pub about Blade with this guy who said it's not a horror film. I was like, "Look, mate, sit down, hang on, whoa." But Blade, for what it did to Marvel, because of course, when Blade came out, Marvel wasn't seen as anything profitable when it came to films. I believe they did the Hulk before Blade, which completely bombed, and everyone was like, "This is rubbish, this is shit." Then Blade came across and completely just changed and revolutionized Marvel. So I would say Blade. And then last one, I would say, let's go with Night of the Living Dead.
All right.
Let's go Night of the
Classic.
Living Dead. And I think a lot of people don't know about, like, the ending, how the ending wasn't meant to be based on Ben's race, but the casting of Ben made it a race issue, or like a commentary on race, should I say. And I think just that in general just completely revolutionized what we talk about in horror films, and also messaging when it comes to casting and black bodies in horror films, how that can completely change the meaning of the film depending on the cast. So yeah, 1,000,000%.
Yeah, and one of the first zombie undead films, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. Smart zombies as well, no brains. They actually were intelligent. So, yeah.
All right, Brian, how about you? What was your what were some of the collections that you made that you felt were impactful to the horror industry?
Yeah, I wrote down Night of the Living Dead because I fully agree, especially with the zombie genre. It's kind of it. Obviously not the first, but revolutionized it for sure. Honestly, and I hate to come back to it, but I think we are living in history right now with Obsession and Backrooms, and I'm not talking about the genre. I'm talking about just film in general, especially when it comes to what studios might be looking into in the future. Because look at what these movies did. Backrooms literally came out yesterday, and 10 million immediately. So and it's not even the weekend literally just started. And then of course Obsession's making 100 mil plus, and it was made for 750K. I think that is going to change everything. I think we are going to see in the next 3 years a lot of that, good and bad. I think some people might have a little bit too much trust be put into them, and we might get some bad stuff out of there. But I think we're going to continue to find people out of nowhere who are going to create the next best thing, the next best. I mean, I'm just going to say blockbuster, even though it's not exactly what blockbuster means, but financially, it's definitely getting there. And so that I think there's something there. I really think we are currently living in history, and we will see the effects of it in the next few years.
I must say that Obsession, in the 4 or 5 years that I've been doing what I do, Obsession is the only film where people who I've never spoken to, or people who, in my normal life who I haven't spoken to in years, have sent me messages and said, "Have you seen this yet?"
Obsession.
Wow.
That's never happened before.
Yeah, that's awesome.
They want your take, Ricky. They want you to
Yeah.
check it out. Go check it out. Take the kids, put a blindfold on.
Family day out.
I honestly, I think Casper at the cinema will be scarier than the film. Trust me.
Well, all right. So I'm going to add to this this topic. I mean, you guys didn't mention Blair Witch Project, and I mean, there's many great found footage films, but I mean that one kind of kicked off like, hey, you can take this to a whole other level, right? And there's still stories coming out to this day, in terms of the actors saying like, yeah, we were ad-libbing stuff. They didn't tell us what was going to happen. They were, the crew was just scaring us from the bushes, but people thought that was a real thing. And that was part of it. And then similarly with the Paranormal Activity, right? I mean, I think that's still, for people that have not seen that yet, for whatever reason, there's a reason that there are 9 of them or whatever. But the first one is still, it still holds, to this day. And even if you know what's coming, it's creepy and it's just really well executed.
They're both films I was going to include in the list. I thought I needed to narrow it down to just 3, but yeah.
I mean, there's so many, from an impact standpoint, it's like you can make an argument for so many different films. And getting outside of found footage, I mean, for me, the one that really messed me up as a kid was Nightmare on Elm Street, right? And thinking about Freddy Krueger, but also just the implication of like, if something happens in your dreams, does it impact your real life? And and for many people, putting horror aside, it's like if you have a bad dream, it does impact your next day. It impacts your mindset. Some people feel like they've had visions of the future in their dreams, and they talk about it, and everybody looks at them weird. But that was a movie that kind of like said, okay, you can make this more than just like a scary tale of like a bad guy going after kids or whatever else. And so I just really liked the rules that they established there. And similarly, you look at It Follows, right, which is finally getting a remake, sequel, whatever they're calling it. But the premise of It Follows, for people that are unfamiliar, there's, let's say, a entity that is coming after you, and it is trying to unalive you, and you don't know what form it's going to take. You don't know if it's going to jump from this person to that person, but all you know is that it is coming. And the only way that you can stop it from coming is to have sex with somebody else and kind of pass the curse along. And so it kind of blends, again, kind of the young teen, angst phase with this whole lore. And then you get to kind of play with the monster because, again, it's changing forms and changing people, right? Including to the tall man, right? Ricky, who I think you've called out in one of your videos on Instagram, I believe. Is one of the scariest scenes of all time, right? So by definition, I mean, there's just so many films, depending on if you're talking about like what's scary, what's just good from start to finish, what's well written, what has great acting performances. So I think that's why we love the genre, right? Because you can make a case for so many different films.
Sure. I want to see a crossover between It Follows and Teeth.
Yeah.
Really fuck them kids up. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're gonna give you this curse, where you have to go bang, but the person you have to bang has teeth down there.
That's the premise of Teeth, everybody.
Yeah.
That film messed me up, dude. Oh my God. I watched that far too young. Oh
yeah. But that's a crossover I would be totally up for.
Hell yeah.
So we talked about like why we like films, and we've talked about, you know, what scares us and things like that. So let's answer the ultimate question that I think all of us have been asked or ask each other, which is, what do we consider the scariest movies of all time? So if you were to pick one or two, what would be your choice? Amelia, let's start with you.
Scariest movies of all time is such a hard question because it's completely subjective. Like, it's completely subjective. I just mentioned Teeth, how that messed me up, just simply because I saw it quite young and it just made me feel blur. But the scariest films of all time, I would say probably The Exorcist. But something really cool about horror and why I like horror so much is, if you look at the span of just like time itself, we've got different spikes in what people find scary. So Frankenstein, it was science, and we had like internet horror, like, because that was a new thing, like the big, you know, that was a new thing. And then now we've got like your liminal horror, and like there was a slasher boom as well in the 80s. So depending on where we are in the timeline, there's different fears that are being played with in horror, right? To really reflect that. So I would say The Exorcist, because if you look at like one of the lists of like the scariest horror films of all time, or there's a guy that watches horror films with like a heart monitor on, like a blood pressure thing, and The Exorcist did get the highest spike. So I would say on paper The Exorcist, but for me personally, I don't know what to say about it. It was probably something, and it wasn't really a fear. It was just like, what the hell is going on? This is horrible. Probably like the Serbian film. It was just vile, and it freaked me out to the fact like it kind of scared me because I was like, what is going on in terms of scariness? But I think other than that, I've spoken on the podcast before about my hatred for aliens. My hatred for anything alien based. So, oh God, what was it called? Was it Alien Isolation or something? No, that's the game that I played that was also awful. I can't
You're talking
remember.
about The Fourth Kind?
The Fourth Kind. I couldn't sleep for days. Horrible. Oh my God.
It's great.
I'm really scared of anything alien. So yeah, Fourth Kind for me personally.
All right. Bryan, how about you? What scares you?
It's got to be The Ring.
Yeah.
I got a great story with The Ring, and that this is, you know, in my phase of putting off horror, but watching the occasional just because of the hype or whatever. And so my friend rented The Ring. We all, I mean, there's like 20 of us, went to my friend's house and started watching the movie. And the movie starts off with the tape playing, except that's not true. But what happened to me is the VHS starts off with the tape playing, and I couldn't get through the tape, you know, the 2-minute tape before the movie even starts. And I it was not ashamed to get up and say, guys, I'm out of here. I'm leaving. I can't do it. And what was really fun is I was walking home, and in someone's backyard was a well. So that didn't help at all. So that is ingrained in my head. Since then, I've revisited the entire franchise, the American franchise, and love it. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. But when I revisited The Ring, and I was waiting for the tape to be the first thing that I see, and that wasn't the case. It just starts. The movie just starts as it normally does, and I was like, okay, no, because this is my memory that I have. I fully remember this. So what happened? And I did my research, and that's where I saw that the VHS, especially if you rented it, which we rented it, would have played just the tape, and then a phone rang when it cut to black, and then the movie started. So
was this like a Blockbuster Video, Hollywood Video type cassette, or do you remember?
I where I grew up, very small town, our rental store was a hollowed out RV or camper or Dang, what are those called? Trailer, like trailer home.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
completely gutted, but it was just, rental walls full of tapes. So it wasn't Blockbuster, but yeah, I'm assuming would have been the rentable tape that all renting houses got. But yeah, so that was a nice little piece of like catching up on my own lore, and figuring out like this memory exists. I'm not making that up. So how am I wrong here? And yeah, it was a fun. But I think that movie, destroyed people when that came out. Uh, anyone getting a phone call. I mean, I think like this is before YouTube, but I think if it would have come out today, we would have seen so many short form videos of watching the tape and then someone pranking the person watching it for the first time with a phone ringing. That would have freaked out. I mean, it did. It's just we don't have a lot of proof of that happening. Yeah, that's one that I don't think it's the scariest movie in the world, but it scared me so much to have that lore in my life, for sure. But yeah, that's a good one.
All right, Ricky, what scared you? I know you
So
love
I
The
think,
Exorcist.
yeah, I've said like already, like The Exorcist and Skinamarink. So I think I'll pick like two different ones. So the first time I ever saw the found footage movie Grave Encounters was a pretty harrowing experience for me. I watched it with a girl that I just started seeing as well. So I was trying to be all like cool and stuff, and I just couldn't be. That film, it doesn't have any right being as scary as it is. It's not a great film. It's got some bad like CGI and stuff in it like that, but I don't know. It just really, really scared me, and I don't know whether it's because I was just trying to be cool or whatever. But I have since watched it a few times afterwards. I think it's one of my favorite found footage movies, and it still scares me. And I'm not one of these people who thinks that jump scare is a dirty word. I think that it can be used incorrectly and it can be used correctly. And I think that Grave Encounters doesn't always use it correctly, but sometimes it does. And when it does, it's terrifying. But another movie that really scared me when it first released was The Strangers. That movie wasn't so much fear more than it was anxiety. And it's that idea that our home is not safe anymore. That's something that has always been quite frightening for me. We're meant to get home at the end of the day, shut our doors, and feel safe.
Right.
And the idea that that can be intruded is terrifying. And especially now, like as a parent to two young children, even more scary.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of things that came out at a certain age, for me, and you guys will laugh at this, but Jeepers Creepers scared the crap out of me. Just the concept that like you can't just get in a fast car and drive away. This thing can catch you, and it just seems like there's nothing you can do to defeat it. That one really got to me as a kid, and the other one that I think is a classic, and obviously was also remade by Jordan Peele, is the original Candyman. Just the premise of following the lore of saying Candyman 3 times in the mirror, and then something bad is going to happen. You don't know when, you don't know how, but this thing is going to come. Like that is just terrifying. So that's one of the best movies to see at a young age, and have it impact you. In my
I'm
opinion.
really excited to see what Jordan Peele's company does with People Under the Stairs.
Me too.
Like I'm so fascinated with that. So I think it's my favorite Wes Craven movie. I think it's so incredibly ahead of its time. And it's got Jordan Peele written all over it. And as you well know, I'm not the type of person that will be behind a horror remake, especially with like such a classic. But there are some movies that would work with the right people behind it at the right time, and I think that Jordan Peele is the right person, and I think now is the right time to be making a film about what this film is about.
I completely agree. I'm so stoked to see what they do with it. I think
Mm,
a lot of people was like saying that Candyman, Nia DaCosta's Candyman wasn't very good. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it
I
was
really liked
amazing.
it too.
I
Yeah.
really liked it too. I think it was a really good kind of extension of the story while adding in more theming that we can notice now that is prevalent in today's society and expanding that story. And that's what I think we're going to get with the people under the stairs. A lot of people, I did a video when we first heard about it coming. I was like, hey, we're getting the people under the stairs. And people was going absolutely haywire about it. Like everyone was going crazy. And I was like, the thing is with remakes, you don't have to watch them. You don't have to watch anything if you don't want to. You really don't. But I was like, this is the right time. I agree with what Ricky said. It's the right time to retell this story and bring in some additional theming that we can find relevant today. But the story itself is still very scarily relevant. But I
Mm,
think there's some more really cool bits of theming that we can put in. I'm
sure. And
excited.
there is a right way and a wrong way to do a remake, right?
Yeah.
And it's so obvious to me when a film is being remade, literally to just get us at the cinema and to just get more money out of us, right?
Mhm.
And it's obvious when a film is being remade for the right reasons. So yeah.
I don't want to like talk too much or go into this too much, but Ricky, you mentioned The Strangers and how
Mm,
frightening that was, and how the allure of like random Brian smiling. The allure of like random acts of violence was like the pull of the terror, and that it was the same for me too. That was the scary bit, and the statistics they have at the start, like, you know, random people coming to your
mm,
house or this many times a year, or whatever. But with the Strangers remake, giving us, I don't want to drop any spoilers, but giving us an explanation to the strangers and their
Mhm.
motives and who they are, and they're like this because of that, just completely just
mhm,
distinguished the fear and
mm,
like the bones of the fear for me. And I do feel like, unfortunately, even though the director's really nice, he's a really lovely guy, I do think it was a bums on seats thing. I think they could have just done one if he really wanted to redo the original, if that was a thing. But then those continuations, like the second and third chapters, was just like, what's going on?
mm. And there are ways to remake a film that you want to remake, right? So like,
Yeah.
for instance, Malum and Last Shift. The guy was offered a bigger budget to make exactly the same film. I don't
Mhm.
personally think it was as good as Last Shift,
Mm.
but like, look, man, if I made a film on a really small budget and then someone said, "Do you want to remake this with a massive budget?" I'd be like, "Well, I've
Mhm.
already got the script, sure."
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of times it's also a foreign language film. Like Ring was based on the Japanese
Mm,
film Ringu, I believe, and you have many iterations of that. We also see that coming up with the movie Terrified, right? Which a lot of
mm,
people consider one of the scariest movies ever. That's getting an English remake. So I think remakes and sequels and adaptations, it's all kind of in the same realm. But yeah, to your point, it comes down to, how closely do they stick to the source material? What's Flanagan gonna do with The Exorcist, in his version of it, we'll see. But ultimately, these should stand by themselves,
mhm,
and that's what, audiences are gonna ultimately dictate. So,
mm.
I have a general question for the group as we remind our listeners to like and subscribe and, follow us and join our Patreon and all the things, but how does everybody on this call, how do you guys find and discover new films? Like if Ricky, you said, "Hey, everybody's reaching out to me about Obsession." Obviously, you knew about Obsession, but do you react to your DMs? Are you reacting to your friends saying like, "Oh, you got to go check it out"? How are you guys discovering new films?
I guess I think we touched on this before. Like, so many people tell me to watch stuff
Hmm.
that there's not enough time for me to watch everything. So whenever I make a video about a certain subject, someone said, "You should watch this film," or "You should watch this film," and I put them
Hmm.
all into a list, and then I get around to the ones that speak to me, I guess. Um, I don't find Years ago I would go on like YouTube and just like hope that there was another like new horror trailers compilation, and now I don't find myself needing to do that because of the job that I have, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I guess like people, production companies sending me loads of stuff like all the time, just like watch this film, watch this film, watch this film. So I think that we are in a very rare position
Hmm.
as people who do what we do, that we are never going to be stuck for ideas of what to watch.
All right. Bryan, how about you? Do you follow like the Rotten Tomatoes scores and reviewers? Does that move the needle for you? How do you decide what to watch when you have a list of things in your queue?
Yeah, I think it's just it just kind of comes down to trailers. I think it's just old school. If I happen to hear about it, then I get excited about it. Then I'll go see it. Scores, reviews mean nothing to me because I'm very adamant about making up your own mind. If you're the least bit interested, that's kind of like the discourse right now for Backrooms is if you grew up, and I'm kind of talking to like the younger generation that really like grew up with this lore and this story. If you grew up and you're just the least interested in seeing something that you probably talked about in a Discord somewhere is now getting a studio release, then just check it out. Doesn't matter what I say, doesn't matter who this person says. Just do it. Just go watch it. So yeah, that's typically is just trailers. Of course you hear about so much, especially like what we do. Of course, we're gonna kind of be thrown into the discourse already about what's coming out next and things like that. I just did South by Southwest for the first time back in March, and that was a great way to discover new films that I'd never heard of and walked away loving. But yeah, I mean, nothing's better than going to the theater and seeing a trailer for a movie that maybe I just heard about or hadn't heard of at all, and just, it happened with Passenger, and unfortunately, I hear what I hear, but that trailer, I mean, bravo, because it got me really good. I was very mad how good it got me. So
I miss
yeah.
VHS stores. I miss video stores, just
Yeah.
walking down the aisles and just like because that's how I used to find horror films, like back in the day. You would see a cover. Like I remember one that, like, do you know the film The Dentist?
Oh, gross.
I remember the cover so vividly.
Yeah.
And people don't get that anymore.
Yeah.
People aren't going to have them types of memories anymore, and I find that incredibly sad.
Yeah, that's
We
how.
touched on the. Oh, sorry, Bryan. Go
Oh,
ahead.
it's fine. It's just that's how I was able to catch up, or that's how I was able to keep up.
Yeah.
I would look at the wall and be like, okay, I've seen this half. Let's keep moving. And oh, now it's Friday again or Tuesday, so new wall unlocked, and let's watch them all. And yeah, that's what I love about physical media is if I love something, I want to keep it so that I can be reminded of it. And think about all the streaming services, and you watched something last year and you've probably already forgotten about it unless you logged it or wrote it down or bought it so that you can be like, oh my gosh, that's right, I watched this, it's so good, and I need to tell everyone about it.
All right. Amelia, how about you?
Yeah, I think we did touch on this before, but and I don't know if it's Annie or Ricky that gave me this aha moment, but I also do collect. I'm a physical media collector too, so I've got like a wall in my front that does of like all these horror films, which is awesome just to look at because the colors are pretty. I'm ADHD, so I'm like, oh, this is pretty, but I do flick through streaming services. So I do just look on the horror section and just look at what's new based on the picture. And I don't know if it's, like I said, Annie or Ricky, that was like, that's what you probably used to do in Blockbuster. And I was like, oh yeah, of course. That's the exact same thing. Saturday night, I'd go with my dad and we'd rent a freaking horror film. That's what we used to do. That was our thing. And it's just like a online version of that. So I also do miss things like Blockbuster, or around the corner from me, it was called Video Action, and that was like a private like old guy that had all these films, and it was really cute. And but that's what I do. There's also my comment section. So if I do a video on like horror films that make you want to lock your door twice or something, people will be like, you should watch this. I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that, I'll put it on my list. But that's it. I try to think, Bryan touched on it, if I'm going to review a film, or like Passenger, for example, I knew I was going to see it, so I didn't want to watch anybody else's like review of it because I didn't want anything to spoil my thoughts of it, So I try not to watch other creators if it's something I haven't seen, because I don't want to be like, oh, I'm thinking what Brian's thinking or what Ricky's thinking or whatever. So yeah, just for me, it's literally scrolling through, or sometimes I just go to HMV, which is like, you know, a shop you can buy DVD stuff if you're not in the UK, and I'll just buy stuff based on what the front cover will look like, which means I do have a lot of shit actually, but there's some good ones in there, and then I just give them back to like CX or something if I don't like them. So yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Well, any movies that you want to shout out and recommend, or TV shows before we wrap today's conversation?
I talked about this briefly earlier on, but I watched a film called Dragonfly like 2 nights ago, and I can't get it out of my head. I've said this before, British social realism is as captivating to me as horror is, and when them two worlds collide, it's like magic to me.
What is the premise?
So it is about two bungalows are side by side. In one bungalow, there's an elderly lady who has carers coming in to see her a few times a week. Next door, we have a woman on benefits or welfare, and she sees all these carers go into the house, and they're meant to be there an hour at a time, and they're shortchanging her. They're leaving after like half an hour, 45 minutes. She's like, "This isn't right. You need to be in there for that a lot of time." And she starts going around and helping this older lady, and they connect because they're both very lonely people. I don't want to say anything else with regards to how it progresses into more horror territory, because it does. But the film threatens to be horror all the way through, and it does. It's one of them films where it's so realistic, it's almost mundane, and it's a film where the details are so important. Selling the realism is so important. It's environmental storytelling, right? We see that one of the characters is frustrated because she's got a broken microwave door. That tells us a lot. And the film is full of stuff like that, details like that. And nothing really happens, but in that nothing, so much is happening, from glances, looks, silences, pauses. It's so inspired by Edgar Allan Poe. I'm certain of it. And yeah, I messaged the director, the same guy who did London to Brighton, and I'm obsessed with this film. We're setting up an interview. I'm going to talk to him about it and get all the details about what it all means. But the last 10 minutes of this film is like, it's haunting. It's haunting, and I just can't stop thinking about it, and I just want to talk about it all the time. I reviewed it, and it went on. It was like an 8-minute review for TikTok, which is craziness. But yeah, man, I love it. Everybody should go watch it. It's fantastic.
I'm gonna add that to my list for this weekend as well.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's fantastic. Honestly, the ending it's so. I don't want to say too much. It's just haunting.
Don't. Yeah, we'll have a breakdown in a future episode. We'll get into it.
Yeah.
Amelia, what films would you want to recommend before we kind of wrap?
For me, it has to be a film called Riot Club, which is more on the side of a thriller, I would say, but like what happens in it is horrific. And it's basically, in the UK, there's obviously loads of politicians, don't want to get into politics, but whatever. Some people aren't great and have sordid pasts, and they apparently was a real life club called the Bullingdon Club, which is where a lot of politicians that we know in the UK was part of this club, and they burnt money in front of poor people, and they like rode people over. They're just really, really horrible back in the day, and now they're people in positions of power in the UK. So this film Riot Club is basically a play on the Bullingdon Club. So you know that this club is meant to be these guys that was in the Bullingdon Club. And it's basically following these group of lads in this club. They're all very, very posh, all very, very rich, and they just hate poor people. They hate people that are poor. They think anybody middle or lower class are completely beneath them. And they basically each term there's like a new member of the Bullingdon Club, the Right Club, sorry, that's the real one, of the Right Club, and to like shake things up, they don't go anywhere posh. They want to go to like a pub, basically, to like have their hijinks and drinks, and basically induct the new member or the newest owner of this club. And then what happens in the pub is horrendous, and that's all I'm gonna say. It's the definition of it's like your Eden Lakes, so it's like kind of ASBO, as I guess you'd call them in the UK, but like deplorable teenagers. But basically, it's deplorable teenagers with positions of power that also just completely hate rich, like poor people. And what happens in the pub is just horrendous.
That sounds like my type of film. Now
it's really, really good. It's more of a thriller, but the tenseness in that room is just. I rewatched it with my fiance, and he was like, "Can you pause it for a second, please?" It's like, no, we're watching it all, no pausing. But it's a really good film.
In the horror genre, any others that you'd want to recommend?
Yes, so I would have to say Piggy, which is a Spanish film basically about a girl plus-sized that she's being bullied relentlessly. And as somebody that's seen bullying, I wasn't bullied badly myself, but I can't stand bullies. Bullies are just absolutely horrendous, and this girl's getting bullied from her parents. They call her Piggy. She's known around the town as Piggy. She's eating loads, but that's just her. She's like, this is how I'm coping with this bullying. She goes to a lake and all the bullies are there and everything, so she's getting relentlessly bullied. And then after she leaves the something happened. After she leaves the lake, she sees one of her bullies getting smuggled into a van and getting kidnapped. And then she has this kind of inner turmoil, like, do I do something? Do I not do something? This person's completely ripped on me my whole adolescence. What do I do now? And that mortal dilemma, and there's loads of horrific things as well in that film, but that mortal dilemma is like, what would you do? That social commentary of like, these people are vile. They've been vile to you. They've been violent to you. Like, but now they need your help. So what are you going to do? And it's brilliant, great film.
All right. I'm going to check it out.
So for mine, I'm really glad that William Castle was brought up because I had already pulled Popcorn, which is such a fun movie. This is another one of those movies that as I found myself just inhaling the genre, this was a movie that I was like, yeah, this is for me. And what's funny is it's been a while, so I actually don't fully remember what the movie is about. However, I do know that, the people are in a theater, they're having a horror movie marathon, but they do a lot of William Castle's kind of shticks of falling skeleton, electrocuting chairs and things. But while that's all happening, I know there's like a subplot, or it's kind of the main plot, but it's almost like a Phantom of the Opera type story, kind of a cursed film that was maybe shown at the theater or something like that, and then maybe like the director of that cursed film is that phantom, and I'm pretty sure people just start getting out of the story left and right, and who knows what's going on. But I do remember just having so much fun. This is a 90s movie, so it's not like super old. It's just kind of a love letter to that era. Yeah, just a ton of fun. But yeah, when William Castle was brought up, I was like, oh yeah, great. I picked a good one. So, but yeah, I think that's mine.
All right. Very good. Well, I'll leave everybody with a couple quick recommendations. So one, which is a TV series on Netflix now, depending on where you're at in the world, is called The Burrows. And this is an excellent show. I've not binged the entire thing so far, but it's catchy. And the premise is essentially a retirement community, if you will, of people that are experiencing very weird things. There's creatures running around. There's some mystery around who's running this neighborhood and how this entire community functions, more or less. But it works as a drama. It works as a mystery, and it's got some very spooky parts. So if you have not checked out The Burrows, definitely worth a watch. The other one, which is kind of a hidden gem, going back to my Utopia well here, is a film from a few years ago called Holy Spider. This is a Iranian film. It's loosely based on some actual events taking place in the Middle East, unrelated to politics and the wars and everything going on. But this is a terrifying film. It's essentially about a serial killer, and the fact that some of these murderers are, I don't want to say aided in what they're doing, but they're not actively pursued to be arrested the way that they should. And so this is one of those films where the main character is a female, and you're kind of following her where she's uncovering hints around who the serial killer might be, and then she becomes a target herself. And so she has to figure out kind of on her own, how do I evade this person? How do I potentially take them out, or make sure that the cops, become interested in this person? And it just works on every single level. So it works as an action film. It's suspenseful. It's true crime. But at its core, it's a horror film. So definitely check out Holy Spider if you haven't. That's it. So hopefully now you've got some good recommendations to check out. I know I've got some new ones on my list just from this conversation. So want to thank all the listeners again for joining. Like, subscribe, follow us on Patreon, and make sure to tell us in the comments, what film should we be watching? What do you want us to talk about on future episodes? So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
See you later. Bye.